Hello, and thank you for being here. I'm your host, Nathan Vincenti. This is Inside the Casting Office, a show where we finally get to know the people behind our favorite stars' performances and who gave them the chance to shine. For over 25 years, the late James Lipton gave us an invaluable insight into the processes and experiences of our favorite actors on his hit talk show, Inside the Actors Studio. As an actor, I always wanted to get interviewed by him and be given the opportunity to share my story in an interview that was more personal than any other I had ever seen. But what about those who give the actors the opportunity to be interviewed? I mean, when do the casting professionals get the spotlight? Those upholding and innovating the art of casting more often than not go unnoticed for the truly essential part that they play in creating the stories we love and cherish. These professionals and their unique processes are shrouded in mystery. But not anymore. Get ready to flip the script and take a look behind the curtain at casting professionals, the incredible work that they do, and how they do it. This is Inside the Casting Office. Today, it's my utmost pleasure and honor to introduce our first ever guest, and I'm so grateful for him agreeing to be the guinea pig on our show's inaugural episode. I'm sitting down with the one and only Nick Peciaro, who is a New York City-based award-winning casting professional in theater, television, and film. Currently, he works as a casting associate for the legendary casting director Judy Henderson, currently casting the very anticipated second season of Showtime's City on a Hill. He previously served as a casting assistant on season 7 of the multi-Emmy award-winning Showtime series Homeland. He has several indie features in various stages of production and development, and his most recent off-Broadway play, Donja R. Loves 1 and 2 at the New Group, was announced as a New York Times Critics' Pick. This past year, he won his first Artios Award for an outstanding achievement in casting for his work on New York Theater's Daddy, written by Jeremy O. Harris, starring the Alan Cumming, and was also nominated in the same category for casting Char White's The True. Now, Nick, did I miss anything? How are you? Thank you so much for being here.
I'm good. I'm good. Thank you so much. It was really a lovely intro.
Well, it's my pleasure. You've done some awesome work, and I think it's about time that people hear about it. How you doing today?
I'm doing fantastic. I'm relaxed. I am getting a lot of sleep lately.
You're in New
Uh,
York City, right?
I am in New York. Yeah, I stayed.
Oof, ghost town.
It is. It's weird. Although it's kind of become this sort of like Carrie Bradshaw version of New York, where you can kind of walk down the center of the street and no cars come, like at the
Oh,
end of
that must be
Friends.
awesome. Great for Instagram pictures, I'm sure.
Oh yeah, it's great.
Well, I want to start at the beginning because I don't know how one would get into casting. I mean, it's not something that they teach in schools. It's not really something that I know that there's a degree for. I know you have a BFA in theater studies from Emerson. So how do you go from being a born and bred New Englander and going to college for theater studies and then now working for one of the most premier casting offices in the city?
It began with the performance background. I did go to college. I actually was admitted for a BFA in stage management. You know, pretty early on, semester one, freshman year, I realized that that was not as creative as I hoped. You know, that's a very technical job and it's crucial and so important, but just not something that I was particularly interested in. So I sort of landed with the BA. My focus was in directing, but all during college, everything I was doing was performance related. That was when I was doing summer stock and doing the New England theater scene during the theatrical year. I would save up all my sick days so I could do the tech weeks that all like the adult working actors were doing, just, you know, like we are now. I did two college shows, and from there on out it was professional theater, earning equity points and paychecks, and there came a point when I realized that in order for me to keep doing musical theater, it would be about moving to New York for as long as it took me to get a contract, then going away for 12 weeks and doing it, and then coming back and, you know, subletting an apartment and finding
Yeah,
another
the
one,
whole thing.
you know,
Yeah.
the whole thing. And so, you know, I think at that point I realized it's not what I wanted to do. I did not want to, even if I made it on Broadway, you know, 6 days a week. That's a
Yeah, it's tough spending time away from your family. You can't really
yeah,
like hang out
yeah.
with friends, etc.
Mhm.
Like it's not a normal life for sure.
No, it's not, and God bless everyone who does it, because obviously they're my most favorite people in the world. But it wasn't for me, and so I sort of threw a lot at the wall to see what stuck for a few years, and I think from there I started to become more understanding of what the business was, how the industry works,
Mm.
essentially. I was writing songs for pop hip hop artists, like on a team of writers in a studio. I was modeling, I was doing commercial stuff, just trying my hat at a lot of different things. And what ended up happening was, with working alongside other performers, I was often being asked to like, oh, can we go get a coffee or sit down to lunch and talk about like my resume? Like, what do you think of this? Like, what do you think of my headshot? Like, do you think I should do this song? That kind of stuff. And everyone was kind of asking me what we all ask casting directors.
Yeah, you became a bit of like a whisperer for actors as to like what to go into the room with and how to present themselves.
Yeah, exactly. And through my experience, like doing things like I used to go to Actors Connection and stuff like that, and try and meet casting people, mostly for commercials and stuff.
Mm.
I never really I never really saw myself as an actor. I saw myself as a performer, singer, dancer, actor last. So I never really was dying to be an actor the way that the people on the things that I work on are actors.
Right.
So everything that they were doing was something that I knew how to do. And it was kind of like when the left and the right brain kind of click together and say, this is how it all comes in. This is how you can satisfy all of your creative impulses.
Some sort of like aha moment of being like,
I think the thing that made it the clearest was being able to take an objective look at myself and say, this is not working. What you're saying and what you're doing and who you are and your skill set is not lining up. You're not going to make that happen. And I knew what I sound like. I know what my mannerisms are. I know how I look. And at the time, the current movements in the industry weren't really taking place. So I just felt like it was going to be a constant uphill battle fighting against a type that people saw when they looked at my picture and what was actually going to walk into the room. And I just knew that those pieces weren't going to add up, but I knew how to make them add up for other people.
especially for television and film, there's nothing like authenticity.
Right.
Or is there something like a moment where you were like, no, you know what, this is like too great to pass up. I have to do casting. Like this is a feeling that I can't give up.
Once I understood what casting was completely and I began interning, I knew that was the route for me. I said, this is my place in the industry. This is where I belong. Now, I happen to think I'm very entertaining.
I totally agree. I totally agree.
But there's a difference between being entertaining and taking on a role and bringing a piece of work to life and doing the work of an actor. I feel like I could have been a personality, not an actor.
Right. Something kind of like Ryan Seacrest or something. I think you'd be great.
Sure. Yeah. Even if it wasn't hosting, I don't know. Like and that's what I mean. Like this, there was like this there was this like circling the drain of like, what could I make work? And I was like, why am I doing this? I already know what can work now. And this is it for me. And now this is what I want to do. And this is the career path that I want to take, following in the footsteps of everyone that has come before.
Yeah, and you said that you started interning and you started working for other offices, but I noticed that you also spent quite a bit of time freelancing. So I'm wondering, when did you take that leap of saying, you know, I think I need to do this on my own and develop my own process and have my own way of doing things? And what was that like working for somebody else? And I know that now you're an associate, so that might be a different relationship even than what you used to do at other offices.
Judy is the only office I've worked for full time. I've worked with other casting people, like, day jobs, assisting, that kind of thing. Lisa Rubenstein is a friend, and she's great commercial work, and that was where my practical experience really began. And I sought the advice of Howie Meltzer, who is an LA-based casting director. Oh my God! I just committed.
We're going to talk about that. So why don't you take a second and tell everybody why, because I know why you're freaking out about having this said casting agent.
I hate that. I want to kill
it. Oh my gosh. So we've discussed briefly, and it's something that I was very unaware of before you had mentioned it. I now call those that do what you do casting professionals,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
I was told that, again, casting agent, casting director, casting associate, they all mean very different things. And like we've just experienced, casting agent particularly has like a quite dissonant ring in your ear as to describing what it is that you guys do. So why don't you tell me a little bit about
Yeah.
why
I was
that's not right?
there's I don't know what a casting agent is. I don't think there is any such thing. If there is, please someone correct me. I don't know what that would be. There's a talent agent, and that's someone who gets work for their client. You know, a casting director doesn't get work for anybody.
Mm.
You know what I mean? A casting director directs the casting of a job. You know, in the industry, the relationship is buyer and seller. Casting director, buyer, agent, seller. That's where I'm not trying to sell them to anyone. I'm presenting talent to a creative team and saying, for this part, here's some people that I think would be great in it. You
More
know,
like a like almost like an art dealer, like a very well informed middleman that knows how to seek out and see quality and then propose options to a potential buyer of that talent, saying, here's, you want to go in this direction, here's an actor that could really bring these colors, but then here's this actor that could do this.
that's exactly
rather
correct.
right
Yeah.
rather than being somebody that's like handing out jobs or whatever.
Well, the agent, and you think of any agent, real estate agent, you know, you get a commission on if someone buys the thing you're selling. If I present 4 actors to a creative team and they choose one, I don't get an incentive or a commission or something for getting that person apart. I'm hired for the job. The service
Mm.
that I provide is helping a creative team cast their project.
What's that like, getting on a project that you want to work on, or getting assigned a project that maybe you don't want to work on, and now you're working on it and you're like, oh, well, I got to, like all of us, like anybody that's working any kind of job, I'm sure there are days that are, better than sex, and other days that, that could make you dread being alive.
Yeah. Well, a great job is a privilege. You know, for all the years I spent throwing something at a wall, trying to see what would stick and find my place in an industry that I knew I was supposed to be a part of, when I began casting, everything clicked like that. Everything I was legitimized very quickly, thanks to Judy's great reputation and the work that she has done and the people whose stars she has risen. The people that I've gotten to work with in my early years have been what you hoped for. I didn't have to do the office hopping thing. I was never anyone's full-time assistant. I started and I interned, and an opportunity for me to fill the associate position came, and it's taken off since then. And a few years later, here I am. Being able to work on great jobs because of Judy has been really excellent. And now on the other side of that, when I have done things on my own, or any work that I've garnered through my relationships that I've brought to the office for she and I to do together, it's sort of all it's all comes hand in hand. People come to you when they want you to raise the profile of their project as well. People believe that you can help them get the talent that they want for their project, and they kind of trade on your name in that respect.
Right. I mean, if it's
I don't.
Judy Henderson, there's a bigger chance of getting Brad Pitt than if it's so and so casting whatever who's done a couple short films, I'm assuming.
Sure. I don't think I'm quite there yet, but people know that I am talking to the players in that particular ballpark. So I think that any work that has come to me is sort of like under that kind of premise. And it's all hopeful. Everything is pie in the sky until it starts to become reality, and we start talking times and dates and dollars and all that kind of stuff. But a good day is when you have a project you believe in, and you're the one that is being asked to have a hand in making it happen.
Well, it's really good to feel wanted and desired, particularly when it's for, your personal creative input and your specific way of doing things. And that goes right into something I think a lot of people would want to know, which is, what makes that process particularly exciting and particularly attractive for you, whether it be the story itself or the players that are working on it, make a project really stick out to you that makes you say like, hey, Judy, like let's work on this, or that make you go the extra mile to push for getting to work on that project.
Where it begins for me is the writing.
Right, because
When
I mean, you're performance based, so you come at it from, I'm sure, probably something much more narrative than somebody else that's more like an entertainment industry casting director that's coming at it from more of like a commercial standpoint of faces and names. You're coming at it from more of a narrative and storytelling point of view.
Definitely, and and that's why I love working on theater as at the same time that I work on film and television, because that commitment to the art form sort of like undercuts all the other stuff. It's sort of like it's constantly like flowing through you, this desire to tell a story, rather than like, well, I need a job, let me just do this, you know what I mean, make a buck, or whatever the case may be. You still feel the desire to spend your time dedicating yourself to a story that you believe in, or to characters that you want to see come to life. So what attracts me, like, yeah, the writing, because if it's snappy dialogue, and I mean, I work with performers, so when it's sharp dialogue and great scene work, that's what excites me, because I know that I'll be able to find people who can do that justice and can strike the right tone.
And it probably
And
makes it easier to cast, I'm sure. I mean, like, I know for me as an actor, the better the writing, the less work I have to do to bring that to life. It's really just more so getting out of the way of it, and then you can really focus on the person and their intricate way of like acting, speaking, whatever that is.
definitely, and it depends on what you're doing. If we're attaching a name person, a star or some profile, and it's going to be more of an offer than an audition situation. You want to feel confident when you send that script that you're not just dicking around with unrealistic ideas. You want someone to like. I want to hit that send button and say, I think they're going to have a good read. I think they're going to enjoy this. If you can get someone engaged on something, it may not work out, but if they are engaged, or if they like it, and they've read it, at least they've given the time to the piece. There's always a polite way of turning something down if you're not interested in it, or a couple pages in, you're not that it's not good or whatever. I like to work on things that I feel confident about, that I feel people are interested in. And so if it's not that, if it's more of an audition situation, we're going to be seeing people for it, then you know that you're going to have a rewarding experience in the room. You're going to see actors come in, do their thing. You'll be able to have a creative discussion with them, give them some notes, talk about it, adjust, work on it, and it
Some
will
bold
be
choices.
right. That's like what we do, why we do, and that replicates more of the rehearsal process, I guess, in a theater uh, situation. You want to spend time with a piece of work,
Oh yeah.
and
Oh
you
yeah.
know, and I do too, even when it's something that's a quick job.
You mentioned that, which is that you like to take your time, which I'm assuming can either be something that you have a luxurious amount of, or otherwise have like no time for. As actors, will often get 3 scenes, 4 pages each the night before, and need to come in the next day, and they're casting very, very quickly. Or otherwise, it's a process where you audition and maybe 6 months later you hear back, oh hey, actually we're moving forward with this process. So what's that like, where sometimes you have more than enough time to make all the decisions and really take the time with that material to identify who you think is going to be best for that job? And what's it like when it's more of a quick turnaround, and they require you to have it cast on on a deadline?
I would say, generally speaking, if it's something that's actively auditioning, where we're doing hands-on casting, right, seeing people in the room and like doing callbacks and that kind of stuff,
Yeah.
that there won't be as much of a lag between when that person is seen and when we hire them. Sometimes there is, like last season on Homeland, they had to do a lot of schedule shifting and 3 continents were involved. And this season was, the production period was extended by months. And so people who were being seen back when we were casting episodes like 1, 2, 3, their work didn't end up getting a shot until we were shooting like 10, 11, 12, because just the needs of production. So it
Right,
does
right.
happen, but I would say definitely for at least for TV, you can count on you knowing pretty soon after, and usually for film too. When you have time on your side, is the case of working on an indie film right now, and it's a biopic, and it has to take place at a certain time of year, and we do have a great name engaged, and that person wants to do it. From the time they read the script to the time they were able to meet the director, some weeks went by. There were the holidays, because we knew that, like, okay, if we work on this in the fall, we can't go till July anyway.
Right.
You know,
Might as well,
there is time, right? Let's focus on the right person, and they made it happen. And that person wants to do it and said they want to do it, so we're really thankful there. Same thing with some of the plays that we're working on. This is a sort of weird situation because all we can do is talk,
Right,
but
right.
at least the luxury of time allows us to go through a long list of 27 pages of names for people that we want to put in this play, and sit down as a group and say yes, no, yes, no,
Must be an
maybe.
interesting thing for people that you work in casting, having all this time, whereas usually, it's go, 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 project to project. And I don't know how much time you guys have the luxury of the ability to meet new actors and new faces and go through those long lists, like you said. So it must be, if anything, like a breath of fresh air. To really have the time, at least with the projects that are still moving forward, for you to like really be able to like see every option and turn over every rock.
Yeah, that's very true. I mean, especially with City on a Hill, that show moves very quickly. As much as you want to cover it and really see everyone that could be right for it, or really go through all the submissions and all of the, you know, pushes and inquiries about it, and really give everyone the time of the day, you just don't have enough time in the day to do that. So that's when your skill set comes in, really. That's when the artistry takes place, and that's when your knowledge and creativity come into play. Because if there's a part that, I know well, like, if it's a demographic that I know well, I can think of it off the top of my head, you know?
Well, City on a Hill is a New England based show. I mean, I know that they shoot some in Mass and some in New York, but it's a New England based show, and you're from, born and raised in New England, so that must make it a much easier process for you. I mean, those are characters in a place that you know super well. And is that something that you've been able to use, and is that like a new thing for you to feel like super connected and very knowledgeable on like the place and the people that you're casting?
Oh, definitely. The, it, that was all that what so many of us said when we finally were able to come together, like at the premiere and the wrap party, and see each other after just emailing for months. The creatives in the show and us being able to add that local flavor, and having that kind of like screener of authenticity has been huge, because the production is based entirely in New York. There are every couple times we've gone up to Boston for a couple of days of shooting, but it's shot here, it's cast here. We're dealing with New Yorkers, and
A lot of stereotypes going around from New York to New England, that's for sure.
yeah, New England and Brooklyn and Long Island and Staten Island accents, not quite.
Not
Not
exactly the same. No, no.
it's also that's been exciting too, because there are people who like are have had long careers, and you discover during this process, like, oh, what the hell, they're from Situate. I did not know that. You know what I mean? You
Look at
find
this
that
guy.
they're
What? He's from Quincy? How? Since
yeah,
how did I not know this?
right. And so then you want to like push for them even more, because you know that when they get on set and they're talking to the writers and they're talking to the director and they're talking to the consultant and stuff, they're going to be able to have that shorthand and that understanding of
Right.
the world. it's only going to be good. It'll bring it to life on camera for everyone at home.
I mean, it helps to be speaking the same language, that's for sure. There's definitely some times in New York where you think you're talking about the same thing, and actually they're saying something completely different. I have no idea. Oh, okay. And like, I'm so sorry. That's okay. Cool. Well, moving on. Um,
Boston's a place that people really have a pride about.
oh yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I've got some friends from Boston, and they're definitely Boston proud. That's for sure.
Yeah, and I mean that has happened a few times. So I'm like, you know what? I know they're gonna like this person. Let's make sure they see them.
Mm,
You
mm.
know, and you end up making some friendships and new creative partnerships happening.
And that must be great to get to do, especially, recently. I'd say probably even in the last 5 to 10 years, but I mean, definitely in the past, what are we, 2020? Okay. So definitely in the past, like, 20 to 30 to 40 years, this movement in casting of getting to a place where we are seeing more authentic representation of different ethnicities, different religions, different colors, different cultures, minority cultures, and the LGBTQ plus community getting the representation that they deserve and that they need for children of all kinds, races, and types to be able to see themselves on the screen or within the heroes and heroines that they love. And is that something that you feel personally responsible for? The best person for the job is from New York, but like this person's going to bring a New England authenticity that I know, you just can't buy, or can't train into somebody. Where do you fall on that line where somebody's right for this part, but this person is of this culture or comes from this background that provides a level of authenticity that that the audience is going to appreciate? Where does that leave you?
I think it's important. I think it's really important to do everything you can to at least be inclusive of casting, choices rather, the people that you see for the part. Um, for instance, when it comes to accents, right? Let alone the discussion of race and ethnicity. Let's say we're keeping it within Caucasian culture. If I am casting a girl from England and I see American actresses for it, if I bring in some girls who are from England, I am drawn to them more because it's authentic. It's not an American doing an accent. We have access to the world in this day and age.
Mm.
So why cast, like if I have to cast, Russians like we did all season 7 of Homeland, why would I, you know,
Why make
not
someone work to put on an accent that you can just have somebody already have?
right,
Makes it so
right.
much easier for everybody.
Right. My first step is to go there first to find the Russian act community within my pool of actors, and then broaden it from there. I think we did that pretty successfully. I think that race obviously is something that's something we can see with our eyes, and so let's make sure that everyone has an opportunity, the way that others have had opportunities for so long since this business began. Where it gets tricky is the LGBTQ plus community, because there's constant conversations about, once a gay actor comes out, like we can't really see him as straight, or all these straight guys are winning Oscars for portraying gay characters,
Right, right.
so on and so forth. I think it's your responsibility to make sure the community from where this story comes from is represented. I also think that the best way to tell a story is with the best storytellers.
Totally.
So it's, let's see everyone and find the person who's best for the part. I try
Absolutely.
not to limit myself from saying, well, they're not an authentic Russian speaker, so I'm not even going to bother looking at them.
Mm.
Oh, they're not gay as far as I know. In fact, with Danier's piece 1 and 2, in the liner notes of the play, he says, please, period, please, period, cast at least one actor who is HIV positive.
Wow.
request. It's his story, and that is so much a part of who he is. However, that's not something we can ask. You know, we can't ask
Ooh.
ages, we can't ask ethnicities, we can't ask about sexual orientation, we certainly can't ask about health status, you know? So you do your best. You know, we and what did we do? The new group partnered with the National Queer Theater, and we put an open call out on social media and said, please send your materials here.
I mean, it's the gift of
And
having the internet and having, globalization make, yeah, like you said, people of all different cultures, races, backgrounds, sexualities available to you now at your fingertips, literally.
right. And it can be up to them to disclose what they want to disclose. So were we successful in that earnest request? I'm not sure. I'll never know, you know, unless one of the actors
Right,
were to share that with me.
right.
But the effort is made, and then you find the best performers for the piece.
Definitely. And you've gotten to work now on several projects with Judy. But you personally definitely don't shy away from working on things, and I think it comes from your personal performance-based background of telling stories with importance, with value, with a message, things that deal with, social issues that are of a current and poignant topic of conversation. I want to talk a little bit about Daddy with Alan Cumming, just because it's such an awesome piece of work, and Alan Cumming is such an important part, particularly in New York, of the LGBTQ plus community. I mean, he has his Club Cumming, which is constantly giving opportunities to LGBT plus artists and
Such as my
trans artists.
boyfriend who has a monthly show there.
Really, that's awesome.
Yeah, yeah,
Please
stand up.
plug it for us.
Matthew Krasno and Courtney O'Donnell have a monthly show at Club Cumming called Hot Cousin. They're stand-up comedians, and they pack it in. They've had a show there at least once a month since I think November or December, and they had pretty much the rest of the year lined up until this happened. So check it out when they come
There you go,
back.
Mike and Krasna at Club Cumming. That's every month, you guys, and
That's right.
and they're packing heat, is what I hear from Nick. So definitely check it out. But what was that like? And you talked about too, with these shows, particularly in theater, you're making offers rather than auditioning. What has that been like working on projects like Daddy, like Mapplethorpe, like 1 and 2, with people like Matt Smith, with Alan Cumming, where it's a project that's so intrinsically attached to the message that it's portraying, and so linked to the face of that project, whoever's attached to it, and how that changes things when working on something like that.
Yeah, so like with The True and with Daddy, right? Edie and Alan came with it. You know, that's the beauty of working in nonprofit theater, especially one that's been around for 2 decades, is that so many New York performers begin their life in the theater. There's a fantastic write-up about the founder of American Place Theater, who just passed away at 93, and it listed everyone, either graduates of, what is it, Neighborhood Playhouse?
That sounds about right.
Yeah. New York is where everyone cuts their teeth,
Yeah.
theatrically speaking, anyway. And there's that attachment. People always want to. If you come from the theater, you always want to do a play. You always want to come back to it, I think, anyway. So people like Edie and Alan can go on and have amazing careers doing huge projects, and like would love to come back and dedicate 3-4 months of their time to do nonprofit theater.
If anything, crave it and
Mhm.
go, months shooting projects on sets, wishing that they could just be in a rehearsal room doing a play.
Yeah,
And I know that now it's even become like a bit of a trend to bring in, film and television celebrities to come in and do theater and musical theater in New York on Broadway, because it is such a rite of passage. I mean, one of my favorite instances of that is Brendan Urie coming in on Kinky Boots, because like you take one of the most gifted vocalists and pop legends of our time, and you put him in a Broadway show where he gets to do his pop belt like it's nothing, to like 8 shows a week. And plus it's interesting to get to see artists and like dabble their toe in like a totally different art form, because it's a craft on its own. And New York theater has been, I mean, you know, if you want to do theater, like you want to go to New York, you want to go to Broadway, like that's you said
Yeah.
it, like if you had gotten
When lightning strikes, it's a beautiful thing, but that can also play uh, in the opposite direction too.
really,
So getting back to the first question, when you have someone of that on that level, you have to bring them people who they can go toe to toe with. You know,
mm,
you have to have someone who can match them and can sustain a performance alongside with them. When you have these particular performers are theater trained, and so they can perform 8 shows a week and sustain 2 hours of live theater in front of an audience. I mean, Edie never left the stage except to, you know, make costume changes while walking off to walk right back on it.
yeah,
But when you're the focus of the show, you know what I mean? So that requires, you know, a great talent and a real mastery of the craft. Um, Sometimes you can take a risk on someone who you think might be a good name financially speaking, and put them in a you know big commercial production, and backfires because they can't do it, they can't sustain it, or if they do end up doing it, you know, somehow the great talent that we see perhaps on screen doesn't translate so well to the stage. um, you know, I feel like so many people talk about how it's so hard, you know, so hard to get musical theater performers or theater performers like do film and television work because they're so big, they're so broad, they project and all that. It works exactly the other way too. If you don't have someone who has that mastery of the craft, they're not going to be able to sustain a live performance for hours on end, night after night, for
totally. And
months.
it's a different awareness too. I mean, it's been as somebody who started in musical theater and now does primarily film and television, it's been a an interesting challenge to get what, you know, as a theater performer, you know, you're both in the story but also an active storyteller where you have to like bring the audience along with you, and you're almost kind of aware of them the whole time, and playing everything to them, and making sure that even the person at the back of the house hears and is aware of all of the nuances that are going on. um,
Exactly. Yeah.
is there a production or an actor that that think particularly made that leap really well? I mean, I know I got to see um, Denzel Washington in The Iceman Cometh when he did that on Broadway, and I mean, you know, Denzel comes from the theater, and he was just as riveting to watch for 4.5 hours in The Iceman Cometh as he is to watch in, you know, any of the phenomenal films that he's been a part of. Um, is there any performance like that, or that you thought was particularly successful or particularly unsuccessful?
Well, actually, I mean, from 2 plays that I did, for Daddy, I would say Tommy Dorfman. Tommy Dorfman is best known for his role on 13 Reasons Why. And to my knowledge, I don't know, I can't recall his professional theater experience. Um, I think he may have done, you know, some theater as we all do, maybe community wise or whatnot. And if I'm forgetting something, sorry, Tommy. But he really entrenched himself in the process, and from his audition to his callback to what I saw when I went there opening night, he really took an artistic journey, and it was very successful. And the same for Happy Talk, the Jesse Eisenberg play.
Oh
Was
yeah, yeah.
ended.
Jesse is such an incredible
Mhm.
performer. Oh my god.
Yeah, we were going to, or they had been trying to get, you know, BD Wong to do it opposite Susan Sarandon and Marin Ireland. Um, but BD ended up getting Jurassic Park 5. So
Yeah, which, you
um,
know,
I
it's
don't
a
know.
pretty
I
big
don't know how
franchise to
often
be a
you
part of,
know.
you know.
Yeah. So you know, I'm sure he would have done it if the schedule was lined up. But you know, the artist director Scott called us one day and said, "I need, you know, it's an Asian guy. You know, 30s, 40s, could be 50s, whatever the case may be. Age isn't as big of a deal, just not young. And you know, he needs to be funny." He's like, maybe we should start auditioning people. And I said, "What do you think of Nico Santos?" who I know from Crazy Rich Asians, as does everyone. And if you watch Superstore, big part in that as well.
Yeah, hilarious.
I don't think he had ever done a play, but he does stand up. So he knows how to
Has that
react
live
and interact.
theater.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
And we went for it, and Scott looked at his materials and said, yeah, let me have a conversation with him. I want to talk to him. Like, we had a great conversation. Nico did it. And when I showed up to that opening night, he was absolutely wonderful and a beautiful breath of fresh air in a sort of a dark show.
And that, as a casting director or as a casting professional, must be such a cool moment, you know, like to give either an unknown actor like a big opportunity, or even to give an actor that's never done something like what they're about to do the opportunity to like show a part of themselves that they haven't gotten to show before, and then having it be so successful. It's like finding diamonds in the coal mine.
Definitely. And you know, and in that particular case, I felt like I had done good because
You done good.
there was no submission. There was nothing for, you know, a manager and agent to like push. It just, I heard it, I read it, the idea came into my head, and when he ended up getting it, the manager called and said, I just want to say thank you so much for taking a chance and thinking outside of the box. This is, you know, people don't do that. They say, oh, you're a funny character actor. That is who you are. That's what
Right.
you do. I love repurposing people's talents into different dramatic elements. I love when comedians do comedy. I'm sorry, when comedians do drama, rather.
Mm.
Comedians come with a point of view. They come with a slant on the situation. They already have like a process by which they're, you know, they deconstruct life, and give them a script, and some of them just really take it to places that you hadn't thought of, or even if you didn't think of it, it's unexpected choices end up happening, and it really can be beautiful. You
Totally.
do have that material in the back of your mind, but then if it's not landing or if it's not working, you have to find a way to shift yourself on a different train of thought.
Reading the room, which is something that I know casting professionals talk about a lot, especially because there are so many different casting offices, which all have their own unique process, their own unique requirements. What is the importance of an actor reading the room and coming in and getting a feel for you and getting a feel for what you're comfortable with, what kind of room you run, and what are some best practices, tips, do's, and don'ts that you like to give actors, obviously coming prepared and doing the work and making a choice, but also leaving room for you?
The room that I run, that I learned from Judy and Kim, is a warm and welcoming one. And it's one where you spend time and actually, you know, get to know the people that you're with. You know, this is always an extenuating circumstance. Sometimes you just don't have time to like really ask everyone how their day is and engage them in some topical conversation. But a lot of times there is. Apart from just of doing all the work that an audition involves, just, you know, my advice to actors is really just go in there being normal, because no one is going to ask you to come, especially not in New York. No one wants to talk to anybody. Are you kidding? You know what I mean? Like, if I don't have to see anybody, I'm not going to, God. So like, to invite you to come and spend 10 minutes of an audition time face to face
Yeah,
and
yeah.
work together, we want you there. We don't bring anyone who we don't think can get the part. Every single person who walks in that door, you hope that they're the one that knocks it out of the park.
God, you better hope, because then, you know, your 12-hour day becomes a 2-hour day.
Totally. And then then you start to question your own taste. It's like, what was I thinking? Why wasn't I able to find this person? What am I missing? What didn't I nail? When you send 5 choices to a team and they say, no, none of these, and you send 5 more, no, none of these, and you end up getting up to like 15 people, you're like, what am I missing? What information don't I have? Where is the roadblock in my understanding and my interpretation of what's happening in this scene with this person? You want your people to do great. So if you're an actor coming into an audition, the assumption is that you are great. So to answer the second part of your question, is that talent is the expectation. You're there because we think you're talented, or I'm hoping that you are going to be, because I don't know you well enough. But the point is that you're not going to come into the room to find me being a C+ casting professional. the expectation of you as an actor walking in the room is that I know what I'm doing and I'm going to steer you in the right direction, right? Same thing. There have been times when people have not done their homework and have not done their research, or have made a choice that is just so wrong. I've been in the room where people have made offensive choices that no one wants to be on the receiving end of that. That's not a chair that I want to sit in and watch.
Do you have any really great moments of like either being shocked by an actor or a choice that you just thought would never work going an incredibly long way? And then on the flip side, which I'm sure, probably stick out a little more, kind of much like a sore thumb, instances where, you have been offended or there's been some off color, out of touch comments or even performances or choices or war stories in these audition rooms. You're getting these like borderline sociopathic people coming in doing acting, I'm
Yeah,
sure.
I think is my favorite audition experience so far was Mark O'Brien's callback for City on a Hill, because not only did I get to act with, not only did I get to act with, I had to read. Okay, so what happened was Michael Cuesta came. Michael Cuesta auditioned him in his like final callback. I think he did 2 or 3 tapes, and then we had him come in the room, and Cuesta's here, so he came down. So it was Judy, Cuesta, me, and Mark O'Brien. So I'm reading with him. But the scene is from the pilot episode, and it's Frankie and Jimmy sitting in the truck after Frankie bails him out of jail. And so Cuesta puts me on camera with him. I'm like here, and like Mark is where this book is, and like I'm like this much on camera. And so like
you're just
Mark
as much performing as he is at this point.
yeah. So like I'm back here and like, like I'm talking to him like this, and like setting the scene in that way. So like you're focused on him. I'm taking up 50%. Right. And who do you think Questa had more notes for? Me.
You?
And he's like, you're really good in there, like grab him, like slap him around a little bit. And I'm like, I am
Is this my audition or is this Mark's audition? Who's auditioning here?
But it was an absolute ball. And there was a scene that ended up getting cut where he's like in the bar, like singing and like sitting on the top of a bar top, acting like the king of the world. And it was just such a blast, because one of the best Boston accents comes from this guy from Canada who, like, I was looking at him, watching him, and I was like, I grew up with you. You could have easily graduated high school with my brother.
And it must be weird too, being so aware of that person not being from the place that you grew up in and know so well, and having the words come out of their mouth in such a unique way, like the people that you're from and that you grew up around. So
totally.
So
exactly. Right, and it's just someone who embodies it so seamlessly, where it's not a caricature, because there's also regionalisms. Someone from Southie doesn't exactly sound like someone from where I'm from, and there, and there's a Rhode Island accent, and there's a Maine accent, and there's a Western Mass accent. So when those people come in, you're always like, you've got it, like you've got the craft and the talent, everything that I expect for you to have, because you're here, but also you bring something to the role that leaps it off the page and makes it a visceral experience.
That almost like that X factor that people talk about.
Mm-hmm. And that can go from co-star to series regular.
That's exactly the kind of barista that we need. So that's perfect.
It just brings the world to life. I'll try and speak as vaguely as possible, because this performer I actually really, really do like. They're a good person. They have a great background, but it was just a
wrong place, wrong time.
Yeah, they were fairly new, but in the few times we had seen them, they were really strong, really, really strong. We brought them in for a director session, and so the director was there, the writer was there, one of the people from the producing arm was there, and Judy and I were there.
So this is a full house. You've got production team. This is like, this is no longer matchsticks and lighter fluid. I mean, we're talking about bonfire level acting here.
Exactly. It's, the director sessions are important. That's when you get the job.
Yeah.
The character was for a gay person, and this person does not identify as gay. And their choice was the most stereotypical, cliched, like from head to toe
Big
gay. Like
oof.
the eyes here, like the sibilant S with the list,
The
the rib,
sibilant S.
the
I'm so happy you said it.
yeah,
Wow.
from head to toe, the hip
The
popping, like
whole thing.
this,
The
all the,
right,
it
right.
was so, but I wouldn't even know why they would do that. It didn't make any sense. And, me and the writer certainly identify with that group. And I don't know if anyone else present does, but that was what the thing is about. And you have members of the community there. And it was like, if it weren't for our individual personalities, like making it okay, like clearly everyone was like, whoa, that was terrible.
Yeah.
But you happen to have a very empathetic team. It could have gone the entirely opposite way. You could have done that for someone who that brought up really feelings of like bullying or something traumatic in their past and blacklisted you forever. But it happens.
As an actor, the last thing you want to do is go into an audition room and make a totally off-color choice or have read the thing completely wrong, or even worse, in this case, borderline like offend the people that are represented by the story, the character, the message. And there's maybe nothing more mortifying than being in that situation where it's like, well, you just fucked up.
Yeah.
But I'm sure that it can't be any more comfortable for you on the other side of the table. How do you then go about bringing out something better from that person, that especially that somebody that you've seen in the past do such strong work? How do you have the really difficult conversation of saying, well, that wasn't okay, but
Yeah. Well, in a director session, the director is really the one, driving what's happening. That they're the ones giving the notes. They're
sure.
the ones, decide once they're done having their conversation, you bring the next person in. Director's running the room. So we have a very gracious, very talented director who just let it happen. It was like, great, let's steer it in a different direction. Why don't we try this? And just gave him an adjustment. So it made the audition time worth it. Had him do something else. And then thank you so much. And then that was that. When I left work that day, I called the manager. I have a good relationship with the manager. I said, I just want you to know this is what happened. I think you should be aware of it. The manager's part of the community too. So I knew that this would fall on ears that would be open to hearing this kind
Right.
of thing. I knew
Right.
I wasn't starting a war. So, and he was really thankful for that. And he said, do you think that this is like a burnt bridge situation? I said, absolutely not. I was like, could it have been in a different room? Definitely. So that's why I'm calling you. In this one, no.
So oftentimes, and I know that I experience this on what is probably a daily basis, people put their feet in their mouths. I mean, like, people say the wrong thing or make the wrong assumption. And
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, all these. I mean, I do a lot of Q and A and a lot of and workshops that I teach, and I get put on the spot. And especially, I mean, literally in the audition room, if I see something, I have to immediately come up with the words that create the adjustment that I'm trying to convey, so that
totally.
that person can understand it and make it happen. So it's a lot of on the spot thinking. No one's perfect. I probably think I'm much more articulate than I actually am, and so it does happen. But when it's a prepared choice, you just think that it's so important to do your homework.
Yeah.
And it's
Oh
so
yeah.
important.
And know the people in the room, because
Right. And if you're going to be
especially
a storyteller, then you have to be out there like consuming storytelling. Like what if you were to pick up any news article from any number of sources at that particular moment in time, you would realize the choice you're making is a tone deaf choice.
right. Has there ever been a time where you're watching a play or you're watching a TV show, you're watching a movie, and as a casting director, I mean, I know as an actor, again, like if I'm watching anything, it's so difficult to disconnect the actor part of my brain from the Nathan is just enjoying and watching something part of my brain. And with any creative craft and profession, I'm sure that feeling and that effect carries. Are you ever left thinking, God, they just made the wrong choice, like this person would have just been so perfect for that part? It's just so too bad that they wouldn't have. Is there any story in particular that you find the Nick Peciaro brand could be really taken advantage of in casting that?
Oh, that's a really good question. Gosh, I don't know. I'm trying to think. I mean, there've been some books that I'm like, oh, I want to be the one to do that. I would really love to work with Ryan Murphy, actually, because his work is so polarizing to me. I hate half of it and I love the other
Which half? That's the
half.
question.
Like I loved Assassination of Gianni Versace.
Oh
So good.
my God. I'm sorry. We just need to take a moment of silence for that show because, dude, Darren Chris, I mean, like, I feel you so hard. I mean, like, Ryan Murphy, oh my God, Gianni Versace, him and Darren Chris, I feel like anything that they do together, whether that be Glee, whether that be Gianni Versace, or now with Hollywood, I'm just like, do it again.
Yeah, I can't
Take
wait
all
for
my
that.
take all my money. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Like,
I'm ready for it.
you do what you need to do. You just do that. You know what I mean? With things like Scream Queens, I'm like, why would you do that? Like,
I hate it so much.
why would you have done this to me,
You know
Ryan?
what? I really wanted to give The Politician a try, because what I love about Ryan Murphy is that the cast that are assembled for his projects usually like have some kind of like real life like connection to what's going on in many ways. It makes sense for that person. It's like somebody to go, oh yeah, they're doing it, they'd be perfect for that, you know what I mean? Like something happened in their life that makes their involvement in telling this story, significant. And I like, he has like a sort of he seems to be keenly aware of legacy and context, and those are the things that I feel matter a lot to me when I'm making sort of namier choices. So, long-windedly, what I'm getting at is I tried to watch The Politician. I could barely get through the first episode because the first thing that I noticed was that all these kids are 10 years older than the ages they're supposed to be playing.
Yeah,
And they're like so mature and so sophisticated. And it's like, I get that this is kind of,
in a
well,
way.
it's camp. He's camp. You know what I mean? That's great. And like he has this like a lot of stuff is very splashy and it's scandalous and that's all great. Little fires everywhere. Good.
Gosh, yeah.
Like 70%, 75%. I liked it. Like, I think like it was good. I read the book. I wanted to watch the show. I love Reese Witherspoon. I thought it was so great. I thought she was so great. But I was like, whatever, it was fine. A little hammy, a little heavy-handed in some of the performances. But all the kids were authentic.
Yeah.
15, 16, 17, 18-year-old kids.
I can't tell you how, as a young actor, it makes a difference. It really makes a
It really
difference to me.
makes a difference. All the children on our show are the age that they're supposed to be portraying, because you can't, their personal quality changes and their sensibility changes, and it's hard to like play past. You know what I mean? You're going to be too informed by who you are now.
I mean, there are
And
things
so
that I don't know because I'm like 20 years old, that if I'm 31 and Corey Monteith and playing a freshman in high school, like
right, like
it's
I
like,
don't remember how I was when I was a freshman in high school.
right, right. For
I
me, that was like 2 days ago.
right. Exactly. Me, not so much. Those kinds of things, I'm like, why are you doing that? Like, and maybe that's a different school of thought. When people were playing like way older, rom-coms of like the 60s and stuff, and like these people who are 40, what are they doing here?
Yeah, yeah.
Maybe that was just like a convention that's being broken on the subject of like authenticity, that we want to go age appropriate too. Just more people have more access to creative outlets and training, that I know so many amazing child actors that
I
put pants off people twice their age.
I saw Good Boys with a group of like 10 of my best guy friends, and we were all cracking up the entire time at these three kids
I
that were
mean,
like
he's incredible. Jake
14.
Tremblay, yeah, they're so great. And oh god, I can't remember his name. Ian from Big Little Lies and Sheldon.
Facts.
He's, oh my
Yeah.
god, yeah,
Yeah.
so good.
And it's baffling to me when I see a show like Riverdale get away with casting high school age like 27-year-olds. I'm like 20, and I'm like, yo, what's where'd that casting call go? Like
Right, yeah.
I didn't see it because it went over my head to the 30-year-olds in the room.
I felt the same when I was watching 13 Reasons Why. I was like, it didn't
Exactly the
match.
same thing.
Like, there were some kids that were authentic, and then there's some who weren't. And so when the ones who weren't were like speaking with the parents of the one who were, I was like, this doesn't match. Like, you would be in a bar together drinking. You're not,
Right.
high school parent and kid. Yeah, that's when I start to I go, huh, now I'm not buying it. Now I can't invest in the story, because it's those kinds of things where I would say I would totally do this different. I would, you know, tell the story I'm trying to tell with the people who are these people.
What makes someone right for a part? And you talked about it. It's like it's almost something that you can't really put your finger on. It's something that's kind of like more of an essence, or something that's more like spiritual in nature than it is logical or rational. And that's what is so exciting, especially about the innovations in technology like CGI, performance capture. And you talked a little bit about how you're a huge fan of animation, and I think that animation is absolutely one of the best forms of storytelling today and of all time. Some of the best storytelling that's been done ever, Japanese anime and Japanese manga, in comic books, in graphic novels. Up, the first 10 minutes of Up could have won an Oscar on its own. You know what I mean?
Right.
Ratatouille, the B movie. I don't think you've gotten the opportunity yet to work on something animation. Correct me if I'm wrong.
No.
What about that and the advances in technology that now have evolved, what it means to be an actor and what it means to be right for a part is exciting to you, looking towards the future of your career and getting to work in a medium that you really enjoy, which is animation?
I don't think I'll end up ever casting animation,
Really?
because, yeah, I mean, it's voiceover acting. So much of it has stars in it, which is great. But that, that's it's not my. I don't think I would enjoy working on it. I don't know if I would know necessarily how to do that yet. I think that's a skill set I've yet to acquire, and sort of like direct people with something that's going to be only heard and not seen. What we're doing is storytelling, right? It's matters of the heart. It's matters of the mind. It's about feeling. You can capture that beautifully with someone who is authentic to the type and is that person, and is also skilled as an actor and can bring it to life, and just lightning strikes. You can also be someone like Mark O'Brien, who's from Canada, not from Boston, and captured the essence of it and just is the part, and it makes total sense and feels all the same things. And then you can have animation, which can bring pieces of emotion to life that humans can't. It can materialize what's in our imagination. That is why what we do, there's no formula necessarily to it. You can follow some guidelines, you can do what you can bring your piece of it to the table, but it all has to line up for it to be a successful story. How many times do you read reviews and it's about, well, thank God for this actor carrying this piece because the writing is terrible. They're making the most of what they've got, or a clunky score with a great voice. And otherwise too, it's like, these words aren't being done justice by this particular performer. It all has to come together. So there isn't any magic answer behind how do I get seen? How do I get remembered? How, you know what I mean? It all has to come together.
Just kind of like
And
lines up thanks to
yeah,
the universe and like the energy. I really, I'm a big believer in energy. I'm not a very religious person, but spiritually, I definitely, one of my favorite movies is Avatar by James Cameron, because I think that the Na'vi and their mode of spirituality is so beautiful. The way that they see everything and anything, even the air, that surrounds your body, as interconnected through the energy in the atoms that do biologically and scientifically connect everything. And
yeah,
a story, a piece of work, the people that are working on it, they all have to have this synergy for it to really work, and for that to be the right person or the right time or the right story to be telling. And I'm curious, is there something that you feel makes the energy that the Judy Henderson casting office brings into a room, or anything that's very specific ideologically about working at Judy Henderson, or just being you, that makes for a different casting experience than what you feel might be going on in other rooms?
like at Judy or that kind of thing. It's really with Judy.
You and Judy, basically.
Yeah, yeah, because it's me and her. We have fabulous assistant Shauna, who began as an intern and became our full-time assistant on Homeland and City on a Hill. And then we have our interns who come in and out quarterly.
That's so much more intimate than what I would have thought. For what I see as like an office that casts, Homeland is probably like one of the top 20 productions, and has been for the past 6 to 7 years consistently.
Yeah, well, I mean, what it is people. a creative sensibility and a taste level that sort of complements one another and works well together. Before me, there were associates that had been with Judy for yearly intervals, and Kim had been with her for a long time. And when it works, it works. And that's like anything. If Judy and I didn't see eye to eye or have the same kind of appreciation for things, we wouldn't be able to work together. It's less about a company and less about, because it's not when Judy, passes on, that's the end of Judy Henderson Casting. Some people are like, our corporation that, like Telsey or whatever, like if Telsey were to pass away, I think
It's still going to be
Telsey
called Telsey and Co.
brand,
Right.
when we all go, that's it. That's why we are creative pieces of the team. Like when a director dies, no more of those films get made.
Yeah.
You could have production arms, I'm sure, like, would they dissolve Lucas into just Disney once he's gone? You know what I mean?
Right.
So that's what makes casting an art, is that it's something that the individual has within them, I think, that informs their taste and their life experiences and the way they consume art and their emotional attachment and eye. You have like an emotional eye. Like I see something and I know what feelings we're driving at or how we can get there, what we're trying to convey. You can guide other artists along the way who, that's why this is a creative process.
Yeah, totally. To kind of wrap a little bit on this portion, I'm curious as to how the fact that we're on Zoom, the fact that there's currently a pandemic going on, the fact that, you can't go into a grocery store without a mask on, this whole coronavirus, COVID-19 situation that we're all in and that we, at this point, don't exactly know when we're going to get out of. How has that affected you personally, professionally, your day-to-day, but also how you feel that's affected the industry and where you feel the future of that industry is going to go? Whether you feel that things are kind of going to slowly get back to normal, if you think that there's going to be, a major shift in process and in how things are done and how casting is conducted. I'm curious to hear your take.
Well, I think it's going to go back in phases, but I really do think that the performing arts are going to be in later phases. We cannot do what we do without being together. So I think it's going to require there being testing available on sets. Studios are going to have to provide administrators of those tests. I feel like the same teams of people are going to always have to be working together so that if something contracts something, we can isolate the incident and take it from there. I don't know. I mean, is there going to be rapid testing that someone's going to stand outside of the theaters and make everyone prick their finger or something?
Yeah.
I just don't see how it's going to quickly happen. I think it's still months out. That being said, I don't think that the medium will change. If we are allowed to go back and we are allowed to put people on set together and people are allowed to work together, perhaps we just do producer sessions, or, we do mostly self-taping and then we ask a few people to come for a callback, limit the in-person sessions.
Skype sessions are already pretty standard. A lot over the last 5 to 10 years has evolved to the point where getting on a Skype call with a director and a producer, or even if it's for just a chemistry read or whatever, is already pretty standard.
Yeah, it definitely happens. I mean, we've cast someone from a Skype audition before. It's not ideal for me. I think that this to me is a solution. It's not the new answer.
It's like a Band-Aid, but it's definitely not a cure.
No, certainly not. And I mean, same for me for self-taping, I'd rather be in the room for someone. But if it's smaller parts and you don't need a reader with you and you can sort of kind of get it done without having to take the time out of it. It does make sense. So I think you have to be ready for all of it. But yeah, I don't see this, or I feel a drive to want to return to the way things are rather than accepting this.
Yeah. I think we're definitely going to push. I think people are craving personal connection. I know that you teach online classes. I've definitely been taking them. There's something about just even human interaction. I mean, it's like in Castaway, you create a volleyball if you have no one.
Right.
Like you will find your Wilson. And I think that we're
Totally.
all, never thought I would say, but looking for an excuse to like get back into a room and get stuck with somebody in person. And I think that that's something that you consistently bring up, being such an important part of this craft and the art of casting, which to you is something that is very personal, it's very interrelational, and it's very about a chemistry and an energy that you feel in person. And is there any sort of like last words, personal manifesto of like, this is the art of casting, and I'm gonna do, you know, your Braveheart moment of defending or speaking for your colleagues and your craft and your art, which, as I mentioned in the intro, is shrouded in mystery. It's something that I think for a long time hasn't been talked about, hasn't been cared about. There are no awards in major award season for casting.
Well, we have the Emmy. We have the Emmy.
You have the Emmy
Um,
now. That's right.
yep.
You're right.
We introduced the BAFTA this year, which is wonderful. And
You have the Artios Awards, of course, which you've
the Artios are our awards. That's like a SAG award, you know what I mean? It's our
right.
guild thing. The president of the Academy is the casting director, and that's great. I mean, I think we'll see it. I do. I think it's going to take longer in the theater world because theater casting people, we don't even have a union, you know, as union members in TV and film, that we don't have that in theater. There's resistance there, and it's a constant battle. But, you know, I think that, you know, it's not taught in programs. It's not something you can go get a degree in.
Right.
It's a talent. You know, I do feel that. I think you have to, I think how you inform or grow your talent is up to your personal experience. Like if you were a performer and then that translates into a career in casting, or you studied playwriting and that translates into a career in casting, or maybe you had like an administrator or theater administration or entertainment industry administration majors and things like that. It might not be born out of your education. It might be born out of you grew up here in the city and your parents are huge fans of theater and you saw everything and that was your dream, you know? However, it's one of those careers I think that doesn't have a clear-cut path. I think a lot of us crave things like numbers and steps to quantify what we're doing and help us get there. And it's not. I don't think that's what casting is. I think casting comes from your personal journey and how you apply that to someone else's creative work. It's not just us who work together. There's an audience. There is an audience for all of this. The whole point of this is for the rest of the world to consume it and have it be meaningful to them. I don't think that we will be seeing, you know, Brady Bunch squares of everyone acting alongside of each other and having that be a series.
Right.
I don't think we're going to be able to have a special case where we like get 10 performers to be in a play and we film it and then air it and that's how we consume theater. I don't think that's the case. You need to be there. You need to be a part of it. You need to be doing it together, and that includes the audience. The audience is always the other character in the
Absolutely. They're an essential part of that conversation, and that's something that you have to learn is how do I get from this monstrous camera lens machine looking thing, how do I get that energy of like that simmer of like aliveness that comes from having anywhere from, you know, 10 to 1,000 to 10,000 people sitting in a theater, you know, like waiting for you to do your thing and like for everything to go well and not fuck up. There's like such a, I can't, you know, like you can't like put your name, you can't put words on like the energy that's felt from either going to the cinema or going to the theater and being like one voyeuristic member of this like greater whole, ready to consume whatever it is that you're about to watch.
You know, whether you're acting in front of the camera or acting in front of an audience on a stage, you know that your work is speaking to someone and it could become their favorite thing. You know, it could become the thing that matters to them or reach them at a time in their life when they needed to hear what you had to say, or it informed them of something they didn't know about before. Or it could just be the escape. We all need that.
Yeah,
we all
entertainment.
need it. And that's why you need to get out and go to it, to do it, get it inside your own home every single day. What else is in your home? What other bad influences are around you? People, things, you know, people need to be able to put on their shoes and go take a walk and consume. Right, literally a week before the shutdown, talking about privilege of working on certain things. Ethan Hawke gave Judy a call and said, I've got this, screenplay, and it's an adaptation of a play that we want to do. Jack O'Brien is directing, and Jonathan Mark Sherman wrote it, and I've got Laura Linney doing it, and Bobby Cannavale, and all these fantastic people who are New Yorkers and theater makers who have all done wonderful, amazing things on film and television, true like artists. And he asked her to set some people, and she did, and we went and we watched the reading, and halfway through, Laura Linney had a really beautiful story. She was talking about, she'd done a play that was running during the holiday season. If I'm remembering correctly, I think she might have had like just like a little fatigue, just a little show fatigue. It's a one woman show, and she was, it's her every single night. And it was like, I think it was Thanksgiving or Christmas, maybe it was Christmas. And it was a Christmas, she hadn't done a Christmas show in a while, and she went to the box office. She's like, how many people are really here? Like, who's actually coming to see the show tonight? And they were like, a lot. And she was like, oh, is it like families and tourists and things like that? She goes, and they said, this is the time of year we sell the most single seats.
Wow. Yeah, because like there's that person that's alone that wants to be together.
Right. Maybe they don't, and maybe they don't celebrate it, and that's what they do. They go to the theater that night, and they immerse themselves in some work, and they escape. And maybe it's not sad, maybe it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
But maybe it is really sad, and it's always important for you to remember that, know who you're doing it for, know why you're there,
Totally.
and why you're up there. It always, before it is anyone else, for an audience.
Harry Potter will forever be one of my best friends. You know what I mean? Like
Exactly.
not even like Daniel Radcliffe, but like that version of this character got me through, or like whatever story or whatever characters, they get you through whatever it is, like, or they teach you about yourself, or somehow they teach you about someone else. I don't know why I'm getting emotional about it, but it's incredible the work that we get to do and that we're so privileged to get to be a part of, like you said. And that's why this show is so exciting to me, because none of the actors that people love and cherish so much as these people that they've gotten to latch onto and see themselves within would get that opportunity. And sometimes, like you said, it takes an incredibly astute eye, but also a feeling and a talent for placing someone in a position that nobody else would have put them in, to take somebody totally out of their comfort zone and just try it out, because you had such an instinct as to their ability to bring something to that would make the difference. It's such an incredible thing when someone that does your job gives someone else the chance to do something that they could have otherwise never imagined themselves doing. And then having, like, how incredible is it that you get to be a part of putting somebody in the position to change a life or to change lives. Like, it's and they're, therefore by association, obviously, like you're changing little kids' lives, like, like these or whoever it is, or like some father watches somebody that you cast in Homeland or in City on a Hill that has a certain humanity that they can relate to, and then empathize with, and realize, maybe it's okay that my daughter wants to be a beautician and not go to school. Maybe that's what she's meant for. And I think that's an incredibly important thing, like the end goal, like that final consumer, that one person that might be, sitting there alone on Christmas watching this movie or this show or in this theater, and how important it is for that person or that kid or that grandmother to get that sense from that piece, which can only be brought by having cast it so well. I want to thank you, obviously, for having been a part of it. I know I haven't been able to wipe the smile off my face, no matter how much I've succeeded in doing so for the last however long it's been. I haven't really even looked at the time, because it's just been such a pleasant conversation to have with you, and it feels only like the tip of the iceberg. And I'm so excited to keep getting to know you, Nick, as a person. And I want to finish with 10 questions, which originally came from a show called Bouillon de Culture, hosted by Bernard Pivot, which is like a legendary cultural show in France. It really holds a very important place in our hearts. And Bernard Pivot, got that questionnaire from Marcel Proust. James Lipton, in his show Inside the Actor Studio, which obviously Inside the Casting Office is very much based off of, would use some of these questions to keep the legacy of those incredible interviewers alive. And I want to help do that as well. But I'd love to hear what you have to say about.
Story.
Absolutely.
Okay. When I was in college doing like my sort of like acting training thing. I didn't get a BFA, but I was taking acting classes. And I would do like a one-on-one with one of the heads of the department. And, you know, we just like monologue work. I'd go like once a week, I think, and we would do some stuff. And he gave me a monologue from play The Substance of Fire. And the first line for this character is publish Hustler or publish Proust. And then like something like, I'm not buying it, something like that. And I said, Proust. And exactly what your reaction, he was like,
oh no, he was like pretentious about it.
I mean, he's not wrong. He was right. I was like, on the subject of being prepared and not, you know, wasting someone's time. It's like, at least know how to pronounce the goddamn thing.
You survived, exactly. You survived that experience, and you give people like me who say Eddie instead of Edie the opportunity to learn rather than.
Well, with a last name like mine, you have a lot of sympathy for people, which, by the way, you nailed.
Is it Italian or is it?
Yeah, it is Italian. I'm sure that there was another C or an H or something in there to make it the hard C, because, you know, CI is cha.
I was sweating. My palms were sweating.
Yeah.
I said, today we have Nico Peciaro, of course, who I know how to pronounce his name. Absolutely.
You got it.
So these 10 questions, they're short and sweet. You can give as much context or as little context as you want. It can be one word, or you can give a full explanation. Totally up to you. They are both very vague and very specific, which I like. And I will not be answering them unless you ask me to. So those are like the rules of the game. The first question is, what is your favorite word?
Wonderful.
Wonderful. I like that.
Wonderful is my favorite word.
And what is your least favorite word?
I hate even saying it. Ugh. Armpit.
I saw that in your email. I was like,
oh,
what?
I hate bodies so much. I hate body parts. I hate like.
Are you one of those people that like hates feet? That like you put your feet away, like
never need a foot. Always have to turn my face, and like any medical thing. I hate blood. Bodies are so disgusting.
They're gross, dude. They're just sacks of bones and liquid and weirdness.
Can break at any moment. Ugh.
You know, I'm not gonna lie to you. I have a problem with people who don't like the word moist because
it's a great word.
I love that word, and it's such a phenomenal word, and nothing quite describes something that is moist like the word moist. And I blame How I Met Your Mother for having created this narrative that this word is not good.
That's probably true, but I'm going to thank Betty Crocker and Duncan Hines for keeping it in, you know, the vernacular of the average American.
Moist chocolate cake. Absolutely. Absolutely.
What's your favorite word?
My favorite word right now
moist.
Right now, maybe it's moist. Honestly, I would say right now, yes. My favorite word is moist. Absolutely.
There's an opportunity for an insecure kid to get a sibilant S with a T on the end of it.
There you go. There you go. You know, and it's so funny that when you said sibilant S, the first two things I thought of were Boys in the Band, which I saw on Broadway revival recently, which literally destroyed my entire life. Left the theater a babbling mess, and I saw it with my mom. But I've always found so fascinating because actually Marcel Proust himself, who came up with this questionnaire, when he was asked, or in the original questionnaire, one of the questions was, "What is your definition of misery?" And his definition was to never have known my mother. Wow. And I found that so interesting because Proust is famously bisexual, like very sexually liberated. And you talk about the connection between a homosexual male and his heterosexual female idol, his mother, you know, as somebody that people consider metrosexual, which
I know
very much, I consider myself a mama's boy. I know that like my favorite people are usually mama's boys that are men, at least. I'd love to hear what you have to say about that.
I prefer the term stylish versus metrosexual. Style is probably my second favorite word, but
well, you know what they say, is he gay or European? And I am French.
Indeed. There is even a song about it from the musical Legally Blonde.
Yes, sir.
I love a mom. Anything with a mom and anything that's about a mom. It can be like like the schlockiest, like stupid thing. It could be reality TV, and if it's like a mom going through something, it just like hits me at my core. There's the correlation between gay men and their mothers. I'm literally I'm about to do a play about it. There's always like these jokes, like drinking game parties or whatever, stand around talking. It's like, you are your mother's first name. Like, I'm such a Lisa, or whatever.
Oh
Um,
man.
so, but like, I always think, and I love, like, my favorite parts to cast are like middle-aged women like late 30s up, like late 30s to 60s in there. It's like my favorite, it's where all the icons are, you know what I mean? But it's also like I don't know, there's just something about that journey. I'm so drawn to all films about women in that space for whatever reason. But I always think that a gay man is that the woman that he's pretending to be is like exactly 20 years older than. If you're like an 18-year-old boy and you're like graduating senior, you're really a 38-year-old woman, like ready to hit the town with, like, you know what I mean?
That's such an incredible
Manolos.
that's such an incredible comparison. I'll have to ask my mom all the ways in which I might be a Dominique. I don't know.
Yeah, hey, that looks perfect on you. It's so
You know
it's,
what I
it's
mean?
you're
Who knows?
unisex as
And
well.
maybe it is. That's so interesting. That's so interesting. And speaking of people and the people that you love most, what is your favorite quality in a person?
My favorite quality in a person. I love anyone who like an innocence. My high school mentor in our AP Lit class early on at the start of the year. Well, I don't know what we were talking about, but he said, "Never lose your innocence," and I feel that, and I've carried that with me a long way. The world is hard enough, and you're going to have obstacles thrown at you and things you can't even imagine. Like, I'm not even talking, when I say obstacle, I'm not talking about like meet someone and possibly get divorced. I'm talking like obstacle, like my credit card was charged in Florida and now I can't buy anything until the next one. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
just,
yeah,
you're
yeah.
going to be inconvenienced. You're going to be challenged. You're going to be annoyed. You're going to be heartbroken. And it's like, if you can carry what and hopefully you had a nice childhood, because so many don't, but if you can carry with you even a shred of what life was like before you were made to see the world for what it was, or before that growing up moment, and you're able to carry some of that with you, you'll always know what happiness is. It may not be with you all the time. It may not be something that you have easy access to, but if you can access it, even every once in a while, I think people's attachment to whatever innocence they have left, I think, is my most favorite quality in person. I think what I'm saying is someone who is fun, someone who's carefree, because you can't be carefree. It's impossible to be carefree. No one is carefree. But when you can be, and you can bring that out a bit, you can at least have a beautiful moment.
Totally. One of my favorite songs is a Frank Sinatra tune that pretty much every crooner in the world has done their own take on, which is "Young at Heart." And it's
Oh, yeah,
it's
beautiful.
absolutely true what they say. I mean, there's nothing better in the world to get to the end of your days and have remained, young at heart. This sort of like Peter Pan syndrome that I know I definitely have been infected with. It just makes things more fun. I think that fun is maybe fun. I think might be my favorite word, actually, because I think that it's something that you can find in everything. I think that it's something that like is a necessary ingredient, kind of like love to something being delicious. Like fun is a necessary ingredient to anything being great.
And
And
but you also you repurpose it as you grow up. I'm not afraid of growing up. I've already done a lot of it. There's so much more to go, and you keep doing that until the day you stop growing, which is when you stop breathing. But I'm not resistant to anything like that. It's keeping a piece of it with you. It's finding what fun you can, or finding the unadulterated side of you, and allowing that to come through, because inevitably the world will come down on you, and that's not something to be afraid of. It's just a fact.
absolutely. And I'm wondering how you do that, which goes perfectly into the fifth question, which is what turns you on creatively, spiritually, and or emotionally? And as an addition to it, what turns you off?
What turns me on? Um,
I mean, that's a whole other question, but
um, what I mean, like I said, I love a story, but I guess the reason maybe why I love a story about a mom is because I think that's one of the most complicated roles anyone can play, not just in a script, you know, in a piece of work,
but in life,
in
in the
life.
story of life.
Right, because you're so much self-sacrifice, and somehow even apart from the birth, the biology of it, the chemistry, there's something that is in women that is not in men. I think there's something in women that make them stronger and more layered and more, their emotional life is more amorphous than a male, or at least based on everything that you know, anthropology has developed so far. Maybe in the next, you know, 2 to 5,000 years, we'll see a change.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah. But it's the kind of love and self-sacrifice, and your children are constantly holding a mirror up to you, I think, in a way that men don't have that for some reason. It's being a woman is I mean, women are the strongest people on the planet. And even when you bring it down to earth and you bring it down to like the tangible, it's like the kinds of fighting and the sort of disagreement and difficulty that that is the mother and child relationship versus the father and child relationship is just so much more intricate. And I think a woman constantly has to be so much more careful and so much more collected than a male does, you know, and that's what makes them just, I don't know, more interesting people.
They're like superheroes. They're literally
Yeah.
it's I will forever. I mean, I love my dad to bits, and the things that I've learned and been taught from and by him are invaluable. And I think I'm incredibly like him in many ways. But there's something about my mom that will forever be like, that's my mom. You know, like
Yeah.
that's
Yeah, definitely. And I think that even people who have contentious or complicated relationships with their mother, it, I don't know. I mean, we're painting in such broad strokes here, but you know, there's reasons that, you know what I mean. There's so much more to unpack that I think, you know, you can't unpack with a male. A male has somehow the tendency to lock things up in a box and throw them away. And uh, somehow it's not like that with women. I don't know.
no matter how many times things get dragged to the trash, the empty trash button just never quite gets pressed.
No, yeah,
It
you're
just,
stuck.
it's always still there. It's in the recently deleted folder. It's still, who knows what could pop
Yeah,
up. But did you see the movie Mother?
I loved Mother so much.
Yes. Okay.
Oh,
So I'm
it was
not the only
so good.
one.
No, it was
Love that
fabulous.
movie.
You know, it took me a second. I was like, once I figured it out, I was like, okay, great. Now I know
I'm
how
on
to watch.
board. I'm here for it.
Yeah,
Let's dive
yeah.
in for sure.
It took a little bit, but then once I knew how to watch it, I was totally in. And then like when it just started like imploding and imploding and imploding, I was like, okay, this is so great. I love it so much. I could talk about it forever.
And the casting too is so interesting because I would have never, I would have never put Jennifer Lawrence and Javier Bardem in the same place, let alone as a couple. They're both so, I mean, they're both so phenomenal. I think that the people who shit on that film are the ones who need it the most. And
Yeah, I
it's
would agree with that.
such an interesting film. And I think that the casting plays such an important role in how successful it is.
Yeah,
Um,
God, I love Michelle Pfeiffer. She's one of my favorites.
oh my God, Michelle Pfeiffer, dude.
She's
She
so
could, she could step on my toes every day. I would be fine with it. I would still go bend down and praise the
She's
woman.
really, really great. Actually, I think there was a really fantastic interview with her and Darren Aronofsky after. Oh God, that's the director, isn't it?
Of yeah,
Mother.
I think
Yeah,
so. I'm pretty
yeah.
sure.
Then
It's a very particular kind of fucked up, and Aronofsky definitely has a
yeah, I think
reputation
I'm
for it.
right.
I'm pretty sure you are. I'm just looking it up just to make sure that we're not both on camera being very, very wrong about something. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay,
Yep,
great.
written and directed by.
Yep. And she was, you know, getting back to acting a little bit, she was saying, he's like, you're so beautiful. Everyone knows you're so beautiful. You've been beautiful since the day the world laid eyes on you. And he's like, I know in our discussions you were insecure about being an actor. And do you think finally you are, you know, you feel like you've earned it? And she's like, that's so true. Like throughout most of my life, you know, I started working young, and I was learning as I was going, and I thought at any moment someone's gonna go, no, she's a fraud. She's a fraud. And I think that the choices in films that she's made over the years are so interesting. One of my most favorite movies is What Lies Beneath. Like
Ooh,
the sort of
very
hockey
interesting.
kind of early 2000s with Harrison Ford.
God, we
Oh
love
my
those movies. You know,
yeah,
there's some.
I love it. I mean, because, you know, it's not something you haven't ever seen before. Like Lady Bird, oh my God, what a fantastic, beautiful film. What
Oh
about
yeah,
a teenage girl who's kind of offbeat and unpopular going through high school? I've never seen that movie before, but how beautifully it was told. Oh, like what a fresh approach for it. And the performances of these people, they bring it to life in a different way.
absolutely.
Those things,
Um,
all the above turns me on.
love that, love that, including Michelle Pfeiffer turns,
So
and
much.
and I'm talking sexually now. I'm kidding. Okay, all right. What is your idea of happiness?
Oh gosh, my idea of happiness.
Ask a
Well,
lot.
to me, happiness is like momentary. I think that actually another friend was putting together a questionnaire just for fun for her friends, and she's like, pretend I'm a child and explain the difference between like joy and something else or whatever. And I was saying, to me, joy is what happens after sadness. Everyone starts life happy. I don't know anything else, right? I'm just happy. I'm happy to be here. And then something happens to you and it registers as unwelcome. I'm hungry or whatever. And it becomes more complicated as life goes on. And so you eventually become not sad again. But this time it's not fully happy. You know, now it's like I'm not sad again. And now I don't want to be sad again. So things are good until you get to that next sad thing.
Mm,
So joy is always the aftermath of sadness. So I think most of our lives we find we have joy. You know, you have to come from a place of despair in order to have happiness again, and the in between is joy. Things are joyful. Happy is unadulterated, in my opinion. Happy is pure. There is nothing in the way of it. It's not because of or born out of anything. It just is. I am happy. I can't think about what's behind me. I can't think about what's in front of me, only what I'm in the here and now. So what was the question? I do kind of like paint kind of like in broad generalizations more than I do say. Happiness is a beagle and his, what is that from Charlie Brown?
you know what? I'm French,
Yeah.
man. You can't ask me. You can't ask me cult American classic cultural questions like Charlie
Oh
Brown. What
God.
is this? Frère Jacques and the Little Prince. But
Oh yeah. Oh. I'm sort of like happiness to me is like an idea. Like I can describe it more in a definition than
no, but
like
that's so interesting because it's so funny. You know, those moments where you realize that you haven't had your mind on bad things for a while. You know, like you're like it's a Sunday and all of a sudden you check your phone and you're like, oh, I've been sitting here for the past 3 hours just enjoying this beautiful warmth that I can feel, this like sun beaming down on me, and this conversation with friends and this amazing, like you don't even realize that you're enjoying all of these things until you're like snap back to reality. Oh, I've
totally
been having such a great time and being so happy.
right.
um that's such an interesting and very, you know, very real way of looking at it. I think that really is how it happens. It's important that that definition also takes into account that the lows are just important as the highs.
Right, right. I think I always think of the song "Joy to the World." It's like you like something. I'm not religious at all, but you know, something new and wonderful has arrived. A beacon of light. This thing to celebrate. You can't have that without having something to celebrate the end of. You know, we are coming out of darkness. Our bad days are over. Happy days are here again. You know what I mean? It's joy. joy to the world, bring them joy. There's something beautiful coming. And so, put down your load and rise up,
Right. It's
because you
cliche to
can.
say, but all
Yeah.
good things must come to an end. Much like,
Right.
unfortunately, this conversation will at some point if my, mouth ever ceases to make sound.
Same. I'm so long-winded.
But I love that about you. It really it allows for interesting, like there are things that you said that you wouldn't have said if you were a very direct person that then caused a whole other line of conversation that I probably find more interesting than like the core, that path less walked kind of thing. Is there a profession other than your own that you would like to attempt or that you would be doing if you didn't do what you do?
It would have to be in the industry. I would like to direct. I mean, I've never. I guess that's where I use it. I use it as a casting director in my day-to-day life in giving notes and adjustments in the room. I've never professionally directed a production. I'm I'm pretty sure I could do it for theater and know what I'm doing and like capably do it. I would think that I'd be able to apply those skills to television and filmmaking for
Definitely a lot more moving parts when a director for
totally.
film and television. Yeah.
Exactly. There's an understanding of filmmaking itself that is,
Mm-hmm.
I would have so much to learn. But I think I can certainly direct actors, so I would love to apply that to a project one day.
If you could choose only one book or story or script, but as long as it's like, a story, if you could only choose one to read for the rest of your life, what would it be?
I just want to say for the record that you didn't give this to me ahead of time, and I already know the answer, and the answer is Charlotte's Web.
Really?
Because it's immediate. I already know.
That's
It's a beautiful story to me.
That's such an interesting choice.
Well, what's your favorite?
I would, it's funny because, and I just mentioned it, and it's something that I, for a very long time, forgot about, which is The Little Prince, which for me, was read to me by my mom every night before going to bed, every night until I was whatever age, until I was like, okay, we get it, like The Little Prince, okay, cool. And when I was a kid, I had my Little Prince rose scented cologne, that I wore.
Oh my God.
And I think that so much of who I am as a person is predicated upon the ideas that story presents of remaining a child at heart, of finding the joy, finding the fun in life, and in never letting the adultness of growing up get in the way of taking advantage of how beautiful of an opportunity and a gift it is to be breathing, to be alive, to be on this rock that we call Earth. I'm curious, why Charlotte's Web?
Oh God, it's one of those, I mean, that's why I love animation, because it simplifies, the core parts of humanity. I mean, Charlotte's the mother. Charlotte's the ultimate mother. God, I could go really on and on. There are a lot of nostalgic reasons. Growing up, we had my brother and I shared a room from the day I was brought home from the hospital to the day I moved to New York.
No way! Wow.
Yeah, mm-hmm. We had
Bunk
two
beds, or are we talking
twin beds?
Okay, nice.
Yeah. We would sit in between them and just read. All the books were in a case underneath each of the beds. We'd pull them out and we'd go through, and that, the three, that the E.B. White trilogy, well, not really a trilogy, but those three, Stuart Little, The Trumpet of the Swan, and Charlotte's Web. I associate, when it's hard to have favorites. Favorites to me, you associate, they're favorites not even just because they're great, but because you associate them at the time, or your identity at the time, who you were, that kind of thing. It's hard for me to do that with movies and television, because the only ones I really visit time and time again are like holiday films. Otherwise I don't really watch the same movie over and over and over again. I don't watch the same series over and over. You catch a couple episodes on TV if it's in syndication, but I don't revisit in that way like you do music. Music is that for me. Charlotte's Web there's so many lines in that. There's like my mother has a book called Salutations, because that's one of the ways that Charlotte always greets Wilbur. And it's a bunch of like life lessons that all the, you learn from all the, from whether it's Templeton the Rat or from Charlotte or from, oh God, I can't remember the girl's name.
Something like Lucy or Annie or
Yeah, I feel like
some
it's like
beautiful little
April or
innocent
June or
name.
something. Oh God, I can't remember. It's a farm name. It's an American farm
Right,
name.
right, right.
Sally. I can't remember. But there's just so many like little life lessons. Winnie the Pooh has a lot of those. It's like
Yeah.
and again, why I love animation, because it's for children, but you go back later and so much of it is for adults. And that's a beautiful thing because it stays with you. That's the whole point of it. You think about it, say, I loved that when I was little, because you have an unadulterated, memory of it. It was pleasing to you. It looked pretty. It was funny. You dressed up as one of the characters for Halloween, and you're like, why did that speak so much to me? And because it's so universal in nature, you revisit it as an adult and you say, that's why, because now I've learned those lessons.
Yeah, it's like Picasso, who very famously, doodled almost as a child in his latest years. And when people said, well, that's easy, a child could do that, he would say to them, yes, but it's the fact that after an entire life lived and all the misery and trauma that comes with growing up and living a life and being an adult, that you can still be in touch with your inner child so much as to doodle, yes, images that may upon first glance seem very childish or basic, but that have a ton of nuance and wisdom beneath it, which is what I love so much about The Little Prince. And I just rewatched the modern Netflix reimagining that they recently put out, I think in the last 5 years. Like as an actor, I'm always like, oh, let me like write the next script or whatever that I can act in that's going to be like this big story, like, and then you watch this and you're like, this is a kid with a fox going from planet to planet, like catching stars, and you're just like, there's something so basic and childlike, yes, but with such heart and such wisdom behind it, that and plus because it is for kids, it's simplified in such a way that like anyone would understand it. You could put it on mute and you would get what's happening because it's just that basic.
Sure.
And it's boiling down what are otherwise incredibly very difficult and very conceptual ideas into very basic.
John Lennon said something in like his last interview for Rolling Stone. He was like, I'm gonna paraphrase it, I have no interest in like kowtowing to some sort of critical elite. I want to say the greatest thing to the most amount of people, something to that effect. He was speaking about universality in the messages that he was trying to create. And that's we have niche programming for everyone now. It's nice to be able to have something near and dear that speaks to everyone.
Yeah, absolutely.
And as you don't have to be part of that club or that community to get it.
Totally. That's been proven with, shows like Queer Eye, which are barely narrative. Like, not, how can you not love that show? It's just like, it is very specific to a culture, yes, but also it's just like humans being human to other humans. You know what I mean? It's like, this is just so wholesome. I can't not cry. Tom and his wife Lisa are gonna be so happy now that he dresses so well.
Hey, totally. It's for you. It's for me. It's for everyone.
Exactly. So we can lump this in with this last question, or I'm gonna ask it anyways. Who is your favorite hero or heroine? But that might be Charlotte. That might be attached to Charlotte.
Great. My favorite hero and heroine. Jeez. Oh God, I don't know.
Proust's answer was Hamlet. If that inspires you in any way, I don't know. Whatever.
No, I mean, again, like favorites to me, like it's always it comes down to something that's been with me for a long time.
Well, there is something like interesting, like about meeting, and I'm sure you get this all the time. I mean, you meet tons of celebrities. You've read, like you said, with celebrities right there, like in the flesh. You've been so close to them, and at some point you gotta get numb to that. You know what I mean? To like, oh yeah, and Jennifer Aniston, how you doing? Oh, it's good to see you. Did you have coffee this morning? No, cool, okay, whatever. You're just Jennifer. there's those celebrities that you were in love with as a kid. If I ever saw Jim Carrey in the flesh, I would shit myself. You know what I mean? But like someone that I started liking more recently, someone like Jack Nicholson, I didn't know about until I was 16 or 17. For some reason, there's something about the things and the people that you love and as a kid, like you know what I mean, that make you just want to like jump behind your mom's skirt and like it's just
Yeah.
like what you said, like there's
I
something
know what
when
you
you're
mean. Yeah. Yeah.
exactly.
I know, you know what? I think that's why the answer would probably be fictional, because we're all people. We're all just flawed. And that's why, I don't really have idols. I have like one idol, and anyone else, I'm just so appreciative of the greatness that they've shared with the rest of us, knowing full well that there's probably plenty that's not so great, and plenty that's unattractive about them. I try not to put people on a pedestal, but fictional characters, that's why they're there.
Yeah, that is why they're there. Who's your one idol, if you don't mind me asking?
My one idol is Madonna.
She's yeah,
I
deserves
mean,
it.
and it goes back to everything we said about being a mother too, and then also just like being the giant middle finger to so many things that, and so many causes that can be taken up now because there was one person who put herself on the line and threw herself in the fire for everybody else. I mean, some of her interviews from the late 80s, early 90s are just so incredible. And like, if people were to do that today, if any celebrity was to have that kind of, they would be dragged
Canceled.
across the
Canceled.
goal. I hate cancel culture. It's
Absolutely.
so,
I completely agree with you.
completely non-human to cancel people.
Yeah. Yeah, I completely agree. It's
It
you know,
negates all listening and negates one of the most important aspects of humanity, which is forgiveness.
absolutely. Absolutely. Forgiveness. It's one thing not to forget, but
Right.
if you never
Right,
forgave,
exactly. Learn from it, but people are flawed. You find out why. What's the point? What's the point of punishing anybody if the point is not to learn from it?
especially when very commonly said, but I think very oftentimes goes misunderstood or discounted, which is that we learn from failure. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like people say all the time, "Oh, yeah, failure is so important. I love failure," but like, But like, do you though? Because like, it seems like when someone fails, you're really quick to be like, "Oh, you failed. You failed forever. You've always failed."
Exactly right. Repeat offenders is one thing, but just right off the bat, like, we can't, you follow this person, so you are that. I cancel you too. You know what I mean? Anyway, that's why she's my idol, because without her, there, someone had to start a lot of conversations that we're still having today, that
Yeah,
she began.
we'll make her your favorite heroine. How about that?
I love that. Great.
As a final question, and this is truly the last one for two non-religious dudes to talk about. If heaven did exist and there was a God and you were to die and welcome to heaven, thank you for being here, better that than the other option, what would you like for God to say to you? You walk up to the pearly gates and you're there, and anything can come out of that entity's mouth. What would you wish for that to be?
Well, from another one of my most favorite stories, both as a book and as a movie, Babe, I hope God will just say, that'll do.
Damn. Wow. Well, there is truly no better way to end this interview than saying, that'll do.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Nick. If there's anything that you'd like the audience to be aware of that you're working on next, or that you're excited for, any shows or movies or plays that you want them to go see or go watch,
Yeah.
those or otherwise.
Well, so, I think City on a Hill kind of flew under the radar with the sort of summer release last year. It was supposed to follow Homeland. Homeland was supposed to be the lead-in for City, so people would stick around afterward.
Right.
But Homeland, like, schedule got pushed, like I said, which is why it's on the air now. So I think kind of like flew under the radar over the summertime. While you're home, 10 episodes, give it a watch. It
Easy
unpacks a lot.
binge.
The
Easy
second
binge.
the second season that we're working on now, that we're in the middle of filming, it's really wonderful, and the acting is just superb. So give that a watch while you're all at home, and let's hope some of these plays and things that I have in the works will all find themselves in the boards sometime in 2021.
Well, I can't wait. I'm very excited to, hopefully get to go into a theater soon and
Yeah.
see those. And I will definitely check out City on a Hill. I urge everybody watching and listening to do the same. Nick, thank you so much. This was such a pleasure for me and such an honor to have you on the first episode of this show. Thank you. Have a lovely evening. Everybody tune in, to Inside the Casting Office soon for our next episode and our next deep dive into casting professionals, the work that they do and how they do it. Thank you.
Thank you, Nathan. This is so lovely.